if you're having a difficult time concentrating and focusing on God, silencing your soul so that you're single-minded, you're completely focused and undistracted, have a notepad by you. What helps me is I write down my distractions. Oftentimes, my distractions is my to-do list. Don't forget to write this email. Don't forget to respond to this person. Don't forget to tell him to do this. And I have a lot of things. I have 2 businesses that I'm running. I'm a pastor of a church, and so I have that on my list. I have online ministry. I have people that I minister to, and I have different things. God speaks to me for me. God speaks to me for other people that I need to pray through and write things down, and I have all these things. And so when I get into my prayer time, it takes me 30 to 45 minutes just to get rid of distractions. Now, it might be different for you, but it's very difficult for me. My mind works that way. In the morning, first thing my mind is trying to do is solve. My problems, other people's problems, task list. And so what helps me to silence my soul is to write down distraction in a notepad. And I write, okay, email this person, text this person, do this, do this, do this. And when I do that, I let my soul know that, hey, chill out, relax. I didn't forget. Thank you for reminding me. I'm going to get back to it when I'm done spending time with the Lord. And then the next thing, I go into worship. I spend time with the Lord. And then the second reason for my notepad is to write down what God speaks. Many people don't grow in their ability to hear from God because they don't take it seriously. And one of the reasons they don't take it, and one of the ways they don't take it seriously is that they don't write down what God speaks. When you write things down, you're twice more likely to remember. This is why I'm constantly telling you, hey, write things down, write this down, write this down. Because if you write it down, not only you didn't just hear it, but you just wrote it, and it's most likely to stick with you. You're twice more likely to remember it. Number 2 is so that you have a track record of God speaking to you. Some of you just winging it. Oh, God spoke to me, you share, and then a person doesn't confirm, or it wasn't God speaking, it was actually your soul, or maybe even a demonic whisper that you heard. But because you didn't write it down, you didn't go back and say, you know what, no, this was not God, or whatever, you just kind of put notes down, and didn't kind of go back through what caused me to think that way, what prompted me, you kind of don't check yourself, you don't keep yourself accountable, then you never grow. Or you go back to it, okay, I didn't feel like it was God, but I released it, and then I got a confirmation that this was God, and then this what happened, and you're like, wow, God really did speak to me, and that builds your faith to hear God next time. And then you go back and study and analyze, okay, the reason why, this is how I felt like when God spoke to me. This is what initiated this. You kind of study the process, because God speaks to you, and He has a specific way that He speaks to you, and you are memorizing the path or the way God speaks to you. And when you wrote it down, you are twice more likely to remember it. So you begin to grow, and writing it down gives you accountability. And then it gives you track record. When you begin to doubt yourself, you look back, you say, no, honestly, God spoke to me here, and here's what happened. God spoke to me here, this is what happened. God spoke to me here, this is what happened. And because, remember, every time God speaks to you, He's going to ask you. There's going to be something that you're going to do. It's going to be a challenge, and it will require faith. And if you don't have a track record with God, it might come a point where God asks you to do something, and you question it, you doubt it, because Satan, remember we talked about the first thing that I told you, Satan's job, Satan will always make you question what God says to you, what God speaks to you. But if you write it down, you pray over it, and it keeps being on your heart, you come back to it, maybe He will add something. Sometimes what happened, Bible says we prophesy in part because we know in part. So in that moment when we were praying, God only revealed a part of the vision. He gave you only part information, but you wrote it down. But then as you continue to, maybe 2 days, 3 days, a week later, you continue to be in the presence of God, minister to the Lord, God speaks to you and gives you the other part. But then you're like, oh man, what was that God spoke to me that last week? I feel like it's the continuation, but you don't remember the first part. But if you wrote it down, you go back to it, and you add to what God, now it's not in part, it's a whole. Or maybe you wrote something down, the vision that you saw or a dream that you saw, but you didn't understand at that moment, but you wrote it down. And then a week later, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, 3 weeks later, God brings you an understanding or revelation what the dream meant, what that vision meant, and you go back to it, you look through the details, you write it out, or maybe you read a book, listen to a podcast, listen to the message that are like teaching, like I'm teaching you. You took another prophetic school, you read a book or something, and something was explained in a way like, oh, so this is what it means. Wait a second, I thought I just had a dream with this symbolism in 3 weeks ago, and I felt it was significant, but I didn't understand. But because you wrote it down, now you can go back to it with this key that just unlocks the whole vision, and now the whole vision, the whole dream makes sense. But because you wrote it down, you have the details. And that's how you grow prophetically. Many people, they're just lazy in their relationship with God. They're like, yeah, God speaks to me. But they're like a Russian roulette, one off, one on, one off, one on. And they can't seem to get into the consistent level because they don't take practical steps. And number one, most practical step that you can do is to write down the words that God gives you. Write down the date, what He said, or what you think He said. Write down the vision, write down the dream. Write down right away what you feel like what do you feel like it meant? What do you feel like God, what's your first impression? And then go on and see. Pray more about it. Maybe God will bring you more clarification. Then see it fulfilled. When it's fulfilled, you go back to it and you write down exactly the way it was fulfilled and see if it matched exactly how you received it. Remember, the problem is not that we don't hear God, it's the way we interpret what we hear. And when you look at it and you're like, okay, I got this part right, I got this part right, I got this part right, but I missed this detail and this detail, so this is what it meant. So the next time when God speaks, remember, you're learning how God speaks to you. Now you know where you've missed it and how it actually was, and apply it to this new message that God gives you, and it becomes that much more clear and you begin to grow. But if you never wrote it down, you never went back, you never confirmed, you never verified, you never grow. And you become one of those inspirational level prophetic person that one off, one on. Very difficult to trust, even for yourself, what you hear from God. So that's why it's important to write things down.